Some breaking news for you now. President Trump has announced his intention to ban transgender people from serving in the U.S. military. The president tweeted this morning this quote, "After consultation with my generals and military experts, please be advised that the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. Our military must be focused on decisive and overwhelming victory and cannot be burdened with the tremendous medical costs and disruption that transgender in the military would entail." Thank you. Let us bring in Rachael Bade. She is a congressional reporter for Politico, and she joins me now from Capitol Hill. Your focus is health, so we're really happy to have you. Rachel, let me start with getting your initial reaction to this announcement from the president via Twitter.
So there's a really interesting backstory to these tweets about banning transgender troops. Healthcare in Russia has sort of taken up the spotlight in the news this week, but there's actually been this sort of under-the-radar fight going on in the House over a small funding package that would give the military a boost in spending and also fund the wall. There are conservatives and traditional Republicans who want to add an amendment that basically bars the Pentagon from using money, medical allowances, to allow troops to get sex changes if they decide that they're transgender. And so this debate has been raging behind closed doors. People are threatening to not vote for this bill unless they get this amendment in there. They've been working with the White House quietly to try to get these members on board because moderates obviously do not want to do this because they are concerned that people will be discriminated against. But with these tweets, basically Trump is coming out and taking this a step further. He is saying that he's going to ban transgender troops from serving in the military. That is not the question, from my understanding, here in the House, but it seems like, he took this a little bit further than the House was looking for him to go, and here is what we have today.
So let's just remind people about what the timeline has been. It was about a year ago that it was announced that the ban on transgender people serving openly in the military was going to be lifted. But it's taken about a year, and the military sort of had a year-long timeline to actually start accepting transgender people, which only just started at the beginning of this month.
That's exactly right. And I think that's why you're hearing this debate right now in the House when they're talking about funding the Pentagon. You have a bunch of conservatives and more traditional Republicans. In fact, most of the House Republican Conference supports this proposal that would basically prohibit insurance from paying for sex changes for troops that are transgender. But then you have a group of moderates here in the House and centrist Republicans who basically they've already tanked this amendment on the floor. Conservatives tried to offer it last week to a defense authorization, and they were not able to get it through because moderates teamed up with Democrats, and the House spoke its will, and yet some conservatives want to come back and try to do this again. So just sort of laying the groundwork here, that's why we're hearing all this debate right now, as you mentioned.
So what is the argument about the expense, just how much it's going to cost? As I understand it, we're talking about 0.1% of the 2 million or so people who are serving in the military.
Absolutely. It's a very, very small percentage when you look at overall medical expenses. However, you talk to someone like Vicky Hertzler, who is the person who is sponsoring this amendment in the House, or Trent Franks, an ardent conservative from Arizona, also supporting this provision. And they say taxpayer dollars shouldn't be going to a, quote, social, how do they phrase it? An experiment, social experiment for the far left is how Trent Franks explains it to me. However, you're absolutely right. It's a very small portion. And of course, a lot of people coming into the military, it's not like they join the military and say, oh, I want the military to pay for my, my gender reassignment surgery. This sort of happens, according to psychologists, over various times in people's lives.